Welcome to Still with Purpose. This is Amanda and Christy.
Our goal is to dig deep and discuss real, raw subjects in pursuit of greater self-awareness, positive transformation and healing, and to link arms and journey with you to find purpose and passion in life. Hello and welcome back. We are talking about a question. Have you ever noticed confusion doesn't come from lack of clarity, but lack of commitment? Amanda, do you have a quote for us?
When you commit, alternatives become irrelevant. So this thought has been a game changer for me, honestly. Confusion lies in the space of my indecision, basically. I usually don't decide anything now until I can completely commit 100%. So that does take longer. But once I make the commitment, I'm in. Mainly because I want to be a woman of my word and I want to do what I say I'm going to do, right? For sure, in the last couple of years, I've really dropped down into this. And I think honestly, it's because I've gotten rid of the people pleaser now that I think about it, because if I'm not running from people pleaser, then I don't actually need a bunch of people's opinions, right? So once I decide and I feel confirmed, like I have a confirmation of my decision with God, then I'm completely grounded. So all things drop away, distractions vying for my time and attention. And now I spend the rest of my future moving toward that goal and what I know I heard from God. And then I focus the rest of my time and energy on completing that goal or change in my life. I end up making it the best decision.
That reminds me just about setting goals in the workplace and then carrying them out throughout the year. I haven't heard it in a while, but it used to be that if you're being asked to do something that doesn't ladder up to one of your goals, don't get distracted by it. And it's hard to do because you don't want to tell people no, or I don't, but you really do have to evaluate. Does this fall in line with a goal? Will it help me reach a goal? And if not, be grounded enough in the fact that I don't need to spend my time and energy on it.
I would say a creative mind, which is mine, we can get taken off on these paths for a long time. Let's just speak from the exact spot I'm in right now, is I'm really working on my projects because I've never fully given my projects 100% of my attention. I've always settled for a side gig that takes a lot of my attention. And therefore, my stuff, which I know God's called me to do, gets 25% of my attention. And by that time, I'm really not feeling that creative anymore. And I give it 10 minutes a day. Really, that's kind of what my writing went down to, even though it's a powerful piece on Facebook. What's the number of people that even see that piece when I could be creating all the things that I feel called to do, spending 100% of my time on it? And it's a total faith walk of knowing that God will see it through, that He's my provider. But it's funny you mentioned goals. This past year, I set a ton of goals and I pick them every year and I also add to it during the year. And it actually is the first year that I achieved every single one of them. But you're absolutely right. One thing I did well this year was say no to things that didn't fit in. Is that going to help me get to this goal? Or am I using it as a distraction again so that I don't have to do the goal? So that's a huge piece. And when you're in distraction, you're in indecision and therefore you're just stuck. So basically, once I've decided I no longer go to others, this is a really important piece to hear. I no longer go to other people for opinions and approval. And we've talked about this before quite a bit, but when I'm undecided is when I cloud my life with other people's fears and opinions and concrete myself into inaction because now I've taken on their thoughts and fears. So I absolutely have been in that scenario several times. And within the last couple of years, I've really cut down on oversharing. And it started with this podcast. Mm-hmm. We didn't tell a soul for almost a year until we hit publish. And that was the most freeing thing that I had done. And I really took it to heart to keep doing that and just putting my nose down and getting to work instead of getting sidetracked with people's stuff, whatever their stuff is. So there's a terminology in the seminar rooms, which is choose and move. Do not get stuck with indecision because indecision is actually actually a decision, by the way.
Something else, not sharing with people things, it's along the same lines, but also not asking people or waiting on people to tell me how I did at something. And that goes back to, I think, the needing validation or even people pleasing, to know that somebody else approves of how I'm doing something and needing that to move forward. It's still a struggle for me, but I have to remind myself, even if I don't hear positive comments or even if I don't feel like somebody is applauding me for something, that's okay, because I still feel the desire in my heart and the calling in my heart to do it from God. So whether they do or don't think that I'm great at it. And we've talked about it before. You're not automatically great at something when you start it typically, right? It takes building and learning and perfecting and all the things. You just don't start out immediately out of the gate being really good at something. So knowing that in your mind going into something, I think is also very freeing and grounding to say, I'm going to keep going no matter what.
With conviction and integrity. And we're so good at seeking out people's opinions, especially when we're not grounded in our decision. Because I honestly have made some very big decisions in the last year, and I didn't ask anyone's opinion. I actually didn't tell anyone about the decision until I made the decision. And it's so interesting because when you start sharing or people start asking about it eventually, right? Because something's different, you can stand so grounded in actually your response. You're not trying to find the troops to support your decision. That's not a grounded in your decision stance. If you need people to get behind you in order to make the decision, it's terrifying. You could call up anyone in your circle and present it like this, or you can present it as, this is how I decided and I'm super excited about it. There's two different ways you can present your decision and choices, and there's two different ways you're going to get feedback that either supports you rocking it out or makes you question, or your inner critic is like, see, I am going to fail.
You can lead people in one direction or the other, depending on what you're looking to get out of them, for sure.
Yeah, so it's been a real quiet, lonely journey for me for quite a while at this point. And it's because I just don't need all the input anymore. And maybe that comes with age, because in my 20s, I definitely wanted people's wisdom. I didn't want to make the same mistakes. Maybe I could learn from their mistakes and stuff like that. But man, when you get up in your 50s, it's like you have great connections and you're leading in some way. People are actually looking up to you in different ways. So now it's about sharing what I've learned and the mistakes I've made.
I think that that's a calling for all of us, is we have these experiences. Now we need to share with others what we've learned, and we do it with our kids naturally. And then there are certain topics, I think, that we're all more well versed than others just because of the paths our lives have taken. And so even with people outside of our families, we can share knowledge and experiences and help others. Hopefully we don't need the validation of other people to do that.
This is on a different note, but in the marketing world, you've heard that a confused mind never makes a purchase. So if you're confused, no one's on board. They just cannot back it because you're not grounded in who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah.
We used to do a piece in the seminars where someone would sell their dream to a large group of people, and they started out in small groups. And so then they voted the person that they were bought into their dream with 5-10 people. And then they went to a group of 20, and then the groups merged again. And by the end, it was down to like 3 people with 150 people. And they were like the ultimate winner. And there was cash on the table for their nonprofit. It was a really cool experiment because you just saw it in that person. They were so grounded in everything in their beingness, believed in what they were talking about. It's another huge piece of it. You have to have massive belief in the process or the thing that you're going for.
I think confusion within us, you're saying you can see it in someone else when they're grounded and they're set on something and their mind's made up and they believe it. But confusion within us definitely shows through and makes another person not trust. Even talking about purchases, this is a funny example, but I remember, gosh, years ago, even over a decade ago, I worked on a few different toilet paper brands. And within that category at the store, you would see totally different size segments. So you'd have like jumbo, mega, double size rolls, all these different nomenclatures. And there was just such confusion and clutter in the category about it. 1 time, 2 time, triple size. What am I purchasing? I'm so confused. And so it was price driven at that point. Well, what's cheaper? number. You forget all the other things that really matter to you because you're just so overwhelmed and confused. And so if you don't have that clarity in your own mind, you certainly can't portray it to somebody else.
That's a great example because ultimately we really don't care what toilet paper we're picking. Just get me one that works. That's not $8 a roll or something like that.
And you don't want to spend a ton of time thinking about what you're going to purchase when
Yes,
it comes to toilet
choose
paper.
and move. That's
Yes.
exactly right. And that's the same with marketing. People want to choose quickly and move on. I don't want to hear all the stuff. I'm already bought into you as a person, and now I trust you, and now I'm just going to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're really building always, right? And marketing is the trust aspect of, do you trust the person that's talking?
People have to see it and understand it pretty quickly, especially in today's world.
Going back to just asking before I've made a decision, asking God for massive confirmations. You guys, we're going to talk about God always. It's a relationship you're building. And these are the ways that you build your relationship, is actually asking for confirmations around a decision. Start with small decisions, and then you start realizing how he works with you personally. It's not going to be the same as he works with me. So that's a journey to figure out for yourself. Getting quiet. Journaling is how he talks to me the most. But then I have confirmations on the decision that I feel I'm supposed to create action around. I have peace around it finally. And therefore, I'm so convicted and strong and grounded in my decision that I don't really need other people's opinions. Then I'll just rock it out. I'm completely ready to make this decision. There's no fear that comes in at that point.
And I know people like this, and I've done it too. I'm sure we all have, where also you don't need to revisit the question or the decision. Once your mind's made up, you're going to go in that direction. There's no need to go back and rethink or reevaluate when decision done.
We could go into marriage on this one. And that's a huge decision. And once you've made that decision, there shouldn't be a bunch of going back and forth. Are we in it or not? That should be the question. And then make a decision and do whatever it takes to keep making that decision the best decision of your life. I personally look for favor as well when I'm doing this, because eventually you get to the point where you can really see where his favor is. It's not a bunch of resistance, basically. It just goes smoothly. And I have a great example of that, actually, because my boy, when he was looking with his wife, they're newly married, they were looking at being a lift attendant at a ski resort. And I'm thinking, before you have babies, they both have careers that they can go back to, no problem. So I'm like, well, go travel the world, go get it out of your system, because they definitely want to have kids at some point. Do it now while you're young, vibrant, and energetic, right? So they were praying about it, and they both got interviews, and then nothing was panning out. Interviews would be canceled and then not rescheduled, and then just a lot of emails back and forth, a lot of calls. And they're thinking, geez, I don't know, a mountain probably hires 300, 400 employees. You think they would be all over person raising their hand ready to go. So they just kept getting rejected. And I never really heard back on that idea. And then my boy reaches out to me and says, hey, we got to meet up for dinner. We have some news. And we're at dinner, and he goes, well, we prayed about it and nothing has worked out to go be a lift attendant. And I'm thinking, that's not really the lifestyle my boy's actually looking for, right? We don't need to describe the lifestyle of lift attendants or ski bums, but I definitely know what it looks like. But then I don't know how, but they got opened up to this other opportunity that she had experience with. So she was like, oh, they really trust this company and stuff. No kidding. They reached out, got accepted, got interviewed, overlooked some of the criteria because they were a married couple. They usually don't take married couples. They just got through all the criteria, all the obstacles, and they headed to Switzerland a week later. Their apartment happened to be up for renewal 2 weeks from then. All the timing was so intricate and so God.
Mm-hmm.
It was so incredible to watch them go through that process. They didn't ask any of the parents our opinions. They went to God, prayed about it, got the answers, saw that there was resistance, and then chose into the favor aspect of it. So that's really cool to see, and that builds your faith. And they actually finished the program, traveled 5 countries, which just was phenomenal.
That's so great. And you know what? They could have just tried to force the ski attendant situation because that's what they thought what their future
Yeah.
held. I've done that. I've had something in my mind and so worked my best to make it happen. And that's where you look back and you go, oh, that wasn't God's plan. That was me doing it and it turned out in shambles.
Pushed it through. Or like you said at the beginning, I accepted this idea that came from the sidelines, even though I knew it didn't go towards what I was working on. And now my time's focused on that project instead of what God's told me to do. And it's really cool for kids that young to have experienced that process of how he can really give you a ton of confirmations and favor. And so when he presented it to the parents, we're like, sounds awesome. Why would we combat that? You just told us you heard all these things. I don't know if there's listeners out there that have no faith or no relationship. This could sound like craziness. And I guess I just don't want to hide anymore about how God works. I really want to encourage people to figure out how he does work.
We've talked a lot about God doesn't want everything to be difficult. Sure, we go through difficult times, and I think that's part of God's plan too. But there are definitely times where things work out and things feel easier than they should be. And we're like, oh, how did that happen? Well, it was God's plan and God made it happen. And agree with you. There's no reason to try to justify it or define it any other way.
So to go back to that story, now they finished the program and then they're praying about what's the next step for them. And it was kind of an idea I wasn't excited about. And my boy is so grounded in what he has learned over the last 3 months, his growth with God and his conviction that he very much lovingly stated why and how he's making this decision, not necessarily to get my opinion, but I was like, you're so grounded in this and I can get behind it.
That's awesome.
It's been a learning curve for everyone, but just a great example of also releasing your kids when they get older to actually create their own relationship with God.
My kids probably get so sick of me saying, truly figure out what God wants you to do and what's your purpose? What are your talents? What are your gifts? What's going to bring you joy? What's going to help you serve in the way that God wants you to serve? All those things matter so much. So it's really cool that your son had that experience as he's starting out, a newly married couple and just starting life.
It's really cool. And they're learning how to get confirmation between the two of them because maybe they're not both on board with the idea. Well, then we're not going to knee-jerk response on it. We're going to keep praying about it and wait for the confirmation. I've definitely heard if you don't know, stop pushing things through, stop the attitude, just stop all of it and get quiet again so that you actually can hear and be like, oh, now I'm clear. And I had a situation where I was praying for clarity on a huge decision that was a life changer, honestly. And I asked God to change my heart for what his will was. And no kidding, the next couple of days, I woke up and I was a completely different person around this subject. I was so committed to my new decision, and I've never felt that way for years about this subject. And then all of a sudden, he did change my heart. I all of a sudden was like, oh, wait, this is what I could actually be doing with my time. So this needs to be changed. I need to change this up. I need to go back to the path that he had me on before I got distracted. Let's be honest, we get distracted with money a lot of times and opportunities. And at some point, we're choosing between good and excellent, right? And I think a lot of times, if you've grown up in any chaos, we're choosing between bad and good at the beginning. But when you start getting closer to God and running down the trail of your dreams and stuff, you're choosing between good and excellent now. So the thing you're saying goodbye to isn't bad. It served you really well and you probably learned a ton of stuff, but is it excellent? Is it what God has for you that's excellent for you?
There's also, I think, a lot of unknowns. The good could be quote unquote safe because it's what we're used to. It's like you said, served us well, but to be excellent might mean stepping out into the unknown and taking a chance, taking a risk.
Safe is a huge description of what I'm talking about. We choose safe because we're scared of the risk. And I took a huge risk to change up my life. And it's been honestly phenomenal peace in a decision that was financially could be seen as stupidity or reckless or insane. And I mean, we've all been taught if your goal doesn't scare the crap out of you, it's not not big enough. If you think you can accomplish it by yourself, it's not big enough.
But it's also a testament to your faith and your trust in God.
And that builds with time, right? I wouldn't be able to do some of the things I've done in the last year if I didn't have the faith built around the ranch story that I've talked about in the past. That created tremendous faith that I just really don't question some things when I go ask for answers. So, with that, here are some things to ponder in your life right now on the decision you have not made in your life. One of the things to ponder is indecision. Every moment you stay in maybe, your confidence diminishes. So the confidence of others too diminishes. You can't move in faith and fear at the same time.
When I'm talking with someone and they use a lot of maybes or probably or perhaps, all those words, well, if you don't believe it, why should I? Whatever you're trying to tell me right now doesn't sound like you're bought in. So why am I believing what you're handing out?
And it sounds confused.
Yes, it's more confusing and frustrating for someone when you can't be clear in what you're trying to communicate.
Well, you're also telling on yourself because you're not clear and everyone knows it. So therefore, no one's going to buy in, which is speaking to probably your crappy core belief.
You know, you don't have to be selling anything. It could just be a simple statement. But even simple statements, people have to feel that trust in you, even about the small things.
Your languaging totally matters.
We need to feel secure in where we stand on even the small things.
I agree. Another thing to ponder is commitment is spiritual warfare. So I want to talk about that a little bit. When you truly decide, you close spiritual back doors, the ones the enemy or your old self love to sneak through with doubt, fear, and all the stuff. Decision is alignment. It's saying, I trust the version of me who said yes. It's just, this stuff is really powerful, you guys, and it's just a shift. Hear what we're putting out there and figure out how you can just shift. It's a very easy shift.
And I would say, I'll speak for myself. I trust the version of me who said yes to what I felt God was calling me to do. It's not me, it's God, because I'm basing everything on what I feel like I'm hearing and feeling from God. But it's the version of me that was able to say yes to that.
And that's why this podcast project has been so cool, because we both prayed about it. I've actually been pondering a podcast for 5-6 years. The timing finally worked. I prayed about it. You prayed about it. And it's like, well, we don't actually need to ask a bunch of people's opinions. We could ask for help in certain areas of how to accomplish it. But ultimately, we took this on because we were so clear in our decision. There's been no wavering, has there, on your side?
No, not at all.
And it's fun and easy. It's really fun to adventure with God when it's His idea and you're aligned with it.
And I think being the version of ourselves that could say yes to this, we've talked about it before. Neither one of us would have said yes to it 5 years ago.
No.
Having those experiences where we've trusted God and we've asked God for confirmations led us to the point and helped us become the people that could say yes without any doubts and without having to go get validation from other people.
And that's all about personal growth, right? You're constantly building your character to where you could actually step into this person and actually accomplish this dream now. 6 years ago, probably not. So keep putting out your ideas and asking for His help on how to move forward on them. It might be 5 years before it comes to fruition. And I always say, hold on very loosely, because none of them ever look the way you thought it would.
That's what I was going to say too. Not only say yes, but don't have any expectations about the result or the outcome. And like, we haven't seen the result or the outcome yet. We may not see that for 10, 20, 30 years. Even if we're not doing this podcast anymore, it could still be a result that stemmed from this podcast that we don't see for decades to come. But not having any expectations around that, knowing that it's God's project we're saying yes to, that's also part of it. We have to be okay and relinquish any type of control around that.
To me, I see it as a legacy. When I'm not here, my boys could listen to this content for years after I'm gone. It's digital real estate, and hopefully a lot of people hear it and get something good out of it. But again, we're holding on to that very loosely.
And there could be people that listen and say, "Ooh, this was not for me, and I don't think it's worth a hill of beans." I think I've used that before on our podcast. But that's okay. That's their opinion, and I'm not going to try to control their opinion. And if they don't like it, then that's their prerogative, and I'm okay with that.
Oh, that's another thing too, because I haven't had a ton of resistance and opinions about this podcast, which I have to say is because I haven't asked a ton of people their opinions. And it's because I'm so convicted that I'm supposed to do this. People just say, well, rock it out, girl, instead of, oh, I don't think, is it good enough? Why would you come from that stance if you're so convicted to do something? And we haven't had haters on this podcast. Well, we had one the very first podcast.
Yeah.
We had one person do a 1-star review, I think 10 minutes after we put out the first podcast, which was like, really? But for the most part, for almost all of it, 99%, we have not been hit with massive resistance because we're so clear on what we're doing.
Maybe the 1-star review was a user error. Who knows? Maybe it was someone who really felt that way. That could be. But yeah, we have been asking people, tell us what you think. And people are only offering great things. Now, if you're hearing this now and you have something negative to say, feel free. We can take it. But no, we haven't heard much negativity at all.
And what I would say to someone like that is you go do your dream. You're not our people. We're not speaking to you, apparently.
I do love that line, though. When you truly decide, you close spiritual back doors. The enemy tries to attack us on all fronts. And if one of our weaknesses is worrying about what other people think, that's an easy backdoor for Satan to say, oh, are you sure about this? Do you really feel like you're good enough to do this? That's another thing that we've talked about, that the world kind of beats us down and makes us feel like we aren't enough. And I think that's the enemy trying to play on those doubts that we have. But when we shut that down and we say, no room for that because I've made my decision and I believe this is what I need to do, then that's not even a possibility anymore.
So if you have a life of chaos and you just have a lot of resistance in your life, you need to get clear, stop everything, get super clear on what you're doing and stand in that. And they will move into or out of your sphere and support you or not. There's another idea of the myth of having options. We glorify keeping our options open. That's like the biggest trigger for me, especially in the dating world. But that's often just fear of being wrong. Freedom doesn't come from more options. It comes from fewer distractions. When you decide, you declare, I've chosen my direction and I'll make it the best decision of my life. And then the last one is the silence after the decision. Once you decide, the noise quiets because you are finally grounded in something besides chaos. Decision filters out every voice that doesn't align with your choice. And that's what we've been saying throughout this whole conversation.
Something dawned on me as we were talking through these. I was searching in my mind, what are some good Bible verses that support all this? And I'm like, you know what? What's not in the Bible? And that is, I don't know that I've ever heard the word maybe, the word probably. Perhaps you should do this. I don't think that's in the Bible at all. And I would love for someone to point it out to me if it was. But God is very clear on what we should do or what we shouldn't do, what Jesus came and died for, how we get salvation. There's no wishy-washiness in the Bible.
That's the biggest mic drop. Seriously, we follow him because he is very clear on what he's doing. He's never been like, well, maybe you should try this.
No.
He's also the same throughout our whole relationship. We're the ones that change. He's been the same ever since. So we're the ones spiraling around or creating confusion and chaos.
And he's been faithful and true, and he's always there waiting for us to come around and get in line. And yes, you're right. Yep.
Stop the self-medicating, stop numbing out. Been the same. I've said the same thing over and over. You go to church, there's nothing new and creative at church. They're literally speaking the same thing over and over to us. And we might finally get it at Sermon 87.
When our hearts are in the position and we're able to receive it.
And that goes down to how if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. It's so true in your relationship spiritually, because if you're wishy-washy, you will be thrown against the waves and the tide. Mm-hmm. And when you're standing in intention and clarity on who is your provider, just specifically who my provider is, I don't go into a ton of fear and I make some huge risks financially.
I think too, in relationships, You want strength and you want commitment and you want someone who has a vision for where the relationship is going.
I'll try.
No, let's commit. Let's say what we're going to do and let's do it.
Yeah.
I said that to you before we started this. One of my favorite lines, and I say it all the time, and I've often heard, please don't say that so much. Say what you mean and mean what you say. It's as simple as that.
That is going back to when you commit, alternatives become irrelevant. You're saying exactly what you're committed to, or you're being completely wishy-washy and no one can get on your train. No one's going to get on your train if you're not grounded in where you're going.
Yep. Let's talk about some things to reflect on this week. First of all, what story do you tell yourself to stay safe in indecision? Also, if you trusted your gut completely, what would you choose right now? And what distractions keep you from hearing clarity?
All right. Well, that should be a good week of reflection and ahas, and we hope you enjoyed it.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for joining us today. We know your time is valuable, and we hope you have a phenomenal week.
Until our next episode, find more content and social links at stillwithpurpose.com.